everybody. My name is Dave, and I've recently returned from a trip to the country of Bhutan in the Himalayan mountains. And so what I'd like to do is tell you about that experience and a little bit about that country, and maybe you'll get a new appreciation for Bhutan and this highly interesting country that one can go and visit these days. So to visit Bhutan right now, you have to sign on with a government-approved tour company to visit there. And so what I did was I signed on with a company called DK Tours and Expeditions, which is a company run by two fellows from Miami, Daniel and George, and they were also on the tour, and they contract with the Bhutan company. And there was also one other paying customer on the trip, a fellow called Warren from New Zealand, and myself. So that made four of us travelers going to Bhutan. And when we arrived there, then we met up with our guide, our local guide, and his name was Sanjay, and he was just a terrific fellow to have as a guide, and knowledgeable and engaging, and a good person for a guide, so that was really good. And then we traveled in a van most of the time, and so there was a driver called Yanku, and he got us safely through all of these terrible mountain roads that they have over there, and we dealt with everything from rock slides to snow and ice and everything else, but he got us around safely, so that was good. And then we also had a young fellow called Norbu, who was just hired on to be a helper and helped out with all manner of different things. And so the seven of us that you'll see in this picture now made a nice traveling group, and so then we had 2 weeks to go touring around Bhutan, which was pretty darn good. So for those of you not familiar with Bhutan, it's situated in the Himalayan mountains between, as you can see in the map, between China and India. Nepal is to the west of it. And as we were flying into Bhutan, at one point people pointed out where you could see Mount Everest in the distance. So it's in that kind of vicinity of high mountain ranges. And it's overall a relatively small in size country, and the population is also quite small, less than 1 million people in the whole country. It's quite remote in terms of travel routes and so on, and so it might account for why it has a very unique history and culture and traditions and folklore and style of dress and architecture. All of these things make it quite unique from the other countries in the neighborhood there. The people of Bhutan seem to be fairly well educated, and most of the young people speak English to some degree anyway, so I think that the education system and the health system are quite well developed. And the other really important aspect of Bhutan that you see right away is the importance of Buddhism in the country, and that affects people right from their personal life, their public life, to government policy and everything. So the religion of Buddhism is a very important aspect of life in Bhutan. So in order to have a better understanding about Bhutan and its whole history and so on, I think it's important to say a few words about the political system and the GNH, Gross National Happiness, which is a whole philosophy that drives how the place is governed these days. And it basically takes the view that if you want to measure the well-being of the country, you should look at how happy people are as opposed to how much money they make. And so I think that's a pretty attractive proposition as far as I can see. So anyway, it all starts back in about the year 825 AD, and I will keep this short. At that time, a Buddhist monk from Tibet, his name was Guru Rinpoche, and he's an important figure in history. Went to Bhutan, and some say that he went on the back of a dragon, and others say that he came there on the back of a flying tiger. But however he got to Bhutan, and he came there and he slayed a bunch of demons and he did a bunch of good deeds and everything. And then he also persuaded the powers that be that what they should do is adopt the teaching of Buddha. And so the powers that be agreed with that, and Bhutan has been a Buddhist country ever since. And so that was an important point. And then in the 17th century, something important happened, and I'm not sure exactly what, but I just know that of all the monasteries that are in Bhutan, most of them were originally built around the late 1600s, and even when they talk about reincarnation, the people are reincarnated from somebody in the 17th century. So I don't know exactly what happened then, but something important anyway. So anyway, now we're at the 20th century, and at the start of the 20th century, early 1900s, Bhutan adopted a system of hereditary kings, and they refer to them by number because their names are like this long and unpronounceable. But anyway, in the year 1974, the fourth king came to power, and he was a forward-looking and progressive person. And I have an audio clip by our guide Sanjay, where he talks about the fourth king and what happened when he came to power. So I'll play that for you now.
So, as I'm going to speak about the GNH, the philosophy of GNH happened to be here in Bhutan since from the day my king, the fourth king, became the king of Bhutan. So right after he became the king, what he did in my country was he took the whole country on a track, as we don't have a motorable road in my country. So the first question that he had asked to the people of his country, of my country, is, are you happy? That is the main question that he have asked, and the response that he got from the people are some not good, some good. So in order to promote this GNH in my country, he have a philosophy, but he didn't have a time. So one day, he happened to meet a media person, a journalist. So that journalist, the Indian journalist, he asked, as you are a king of Bhutan, I want to know the GDP of your country. So he just replied to the journalist saying that the GDP is not that important in my country, in the kingdom of Bhutan. But what I consider is GNH is more important than GDP. So the philosophy of GNH grew up, and then under this GNH we have 4 pillars. These pillars are like the good governance, sustainable social economic development, environmental conservation, and then preservation of the culture and natural heritage. And under that we do have 9 domains. So under these 9 ministries, we do have 32 index. And under this 32 index, we have 72 indicators. So this is how the development of the countries are measured or seen by His Majesty the King, and how the people are happy.
So anyway, that gives you an idea how the whole notion of GNH came into being and continues to be what informs the laws and governance even to this day. So then in the year 2005 or thereabouts anyway, then King number 4 abdicated his crown in favor of his son, King number 5, to take over the crown. And because he wanted the new king, his son, to take over the next steps in the development of the country, i.e. to become a full democracy. And so then this king he's quite a charismatic king, and he's kind of broken the mold of kings in several ways. He and his wife and their family, they live more like a modern family, and they've shed a lot of the trappings of kingdom and so on. But anyway, he's a very popular king. But anyway, what he did then was oversee the establishment of a national assembly that was elected. And a couple of years after it was elected, then that national assembly adopted a constitution, and that constitution said that the assembly makes the laws and it gets signed off by the king. But anyway, that's as of that point, then Bhutan became a constitutional monarchy, and it continues to be that now. And even since that point, there have been several general elections, and different parties have won the election in each instance. And in each of those instances, there was a peaceful and orderly transfer of power from one government to the new government. And so that's a pretty good thing for such a young democracy to be able to do that. And we know of mature democracies, i.e. mature in quotation marks, that can't even do that now. And so that was quite an accomplishment for them. The other thing that this current king has done is he made a declaration that everybody in Bhutan should be an ambassador for the country. And so this means that you have to be helpful and kind and welcoming to foreigners and to everybody really. And so it's not uncommon to be walking down the street somewhere and people will greet you and say good morning and hello and can I help you and so on. And so there's just this general kind of feeling everywhere that people are helpful and kind and gracious to you. So it's quite remarkable, I think, that a king can make this kind of declarations that says you all be good to each other, and that gets followed and becomes part of the mindset for people. So it's just another example of what a good head of state can do. And there are heads of state that we can identify now who are hateful and divisive and so on, and they all could take a lesson from the King of Bhutan, and the world would be a better place if they did. So anyway, that's my word on that. So when I was planning my trip to Bhutan, there were a couple of must-do items on my list that I wanted to do when I was there. And so one of those was to do the trek up to the Eagles Nest Monastery. And the correct name for that monastery is the Takshang Gomba, and Gomba means monastery. And so that's a very iconic image that you always see associated with Bhutan. So I for sure wanted to go and do the hike and go and see that. So on about the second day of our tour, that was what was on the itinerary. So we set off to the starting point, and our tour people were kind enough to offer that for the first, it's a vigorous hike, about 3 hours long, and elevation gain of about 1,000 feet. So it's a pretty good hike. And but our tour people made the offer that if anybody wanted, you could ride a horse kind of halfway up to the point where horses couldn't go any further. So I thought that was a very good option. So then we got to the starting area and found our horses and got ourselves saddled up and started and everything, and commenced to head up the mountain. And on the way there are various places where you can't go anywhere in Bhutan without some spot where there's a whole bunch of flags flying in the wind and so on. So there are a couple of those places, and so we stopped and had a look around and so on. But then eventually you get to the kind of viewpoint, and we all took our obligatory selfies to say I was there kind of thing. And that was also the spot where you could get the best angle and whatnot. And we were fortunate to have nice bright sunlight on the monastery. And so our group leader said, this is where you get your money shot. You stand here and you aim your camera and compose it nice, and that's the best shot. So set up our tripods and aim the camera nice and level and everything at the monastery. And so what I'll put on the screen is my money shot from the Eagle's Nest. And so then we got that and made our way back down. And that's one item I could check off on the list. So anyway, it was all in all a very good day. So when I was planning this trip to Bhutan, I had one other item on my to-do list for when I was there, and that was to have the chance to sit down and talk with a Buddhist monk. And I had some questions I wanted to ask, so I thought that would be a good thing to do. And so when we got to Bhutan, I told the guide about it, and same with the company operators, and it proved to be a little bit more difficult of a thing to arrange, and took a certain amount of begging and pleading and persisting to get this to happen, because I guess it's not a common request the tour guides get for this. But anyway, in the second week of the tour, with only a couple of days left to go, then Sanjay did come through and did arrange this for me. So on this day, we went to the Drukpa Monastery, which is a large monastery overlooking a big valley and the town of Regehr, where we had been staying. And so we went up to this monastery, which is also a training center for students who want to follow a monastic way of life. And so at this monastery, then I was introduced to a monk. His name was Jisring Gelsing, and he had agreed to meet with me. And so then we went to his accommodation, which you'll see in this building. It's the room behind the second story far right set of windows. So in that room, we sat down and had our talk. And the monk didn't speak English, so that meant interpreting my questions and interpreting his response and so on. So recording that was a bit tricky. And so this is edited. And because also I don't think you'd want to hear the 15-minute dissertation on the philosophy of Buddhism. I left that out. And so, but anyway, we started off and I introduced myself as David from Canada, and that I was in Bhutan to learn about Bhutan and about Buddhism. And so he replied in kind with this.
On behalf of his root teacher, Sungtil Rinpoche, and then on behalf of the temple and on his own behalf, he is welcoming us here in Bhutan. And then to this particular place known as Dempsey. This is known as Dempsey. And he is known as Mr. Jisring Gelsing, and he comes from an area called Narang, a place called Narang, and since from his childhood he have joined as a monk and been here as a under this monastic body. And now he is promoted as a teacher to look after the monks and for their studies after completing his 9th grade of monastic studies.
Thank you very much. And so the first question that I have is, being that I come from Canada, what would be some of the things that you would want people in Canada to understand about Buddhism?
So, according to the teacher here, what he says is, to the people of Canada, the religion is totally different. You practice Christianity, we practice Buddhism. By birth we are Buddhism. We don't have to get baptized or like that. And all the religions are same. But the thing in Buddhism, the most important thing that you need in Buddhism is compassion. That is what you need it in yourself. Compassion. Compassion is known as Alokitesvara, and we believe in Dalai Lama to be the reincarnation of that Buddha Sattva of compassion.
My next question was on the topic of reincarnation, and so I asked the monk to talk about that and the importance of reincarnation in Buddhist beliefs and just their day-to-day life.
According to the answer by the teacher here, each and every one of us are reincarnated born in this world because of our previous karma. even the animals, the sentient beings, the living beings that are throughout the world. And according to the teacher here, it says that if you are really a religious reincarnated people from the previous life, these are like an enlightened beings who have no attachment to this worldly belongings. They have very compassionate heart, no attachment, no anger, no hatred, no desires, no passions, and like that. These are the 5 poisons. They come in this world especially to teach way of enlightenment, how to get an enlightenment. That is the reason for Tiku. The real reincarnated priest or saints or rinpoches, since from their childhood, under the age of 5, 4, when they are able to speak, they will speak about their past life. He is giving an example of a person called Tenzin Rabge, Gelsi Tenzin Rabge. He is the one who came from the east, our airport where we landed, nearby that village. He was born in that area. Then since from his age 3 or 4, when he was able to speak, he had been telling to his mom and dad that I am not your son. I have to go and meet my uncle. And he wanted to go to the Tashigang Zong, and then meet the head priest there. And once when he was taken there, he said to that priest, I am not an ordinary guy that you are meeting. I came in this world in the 17th century. And I am the 4th ruler of this country in the olden time. I just came here to let you know that I am that reincarnated guy. That one was at the age of 4 or 3, he did it. Then only the king differentiated it, and he was given the old things, everything together. Then he was able to differentiate it. And day-to-day life, the effect of this Tirko, their parents have to send their child to the monastic education. They can't keep it with them. And I should say, happiness, sadness will always be there. That is what he says.
Thank you for that answer. That's very interesting. The one question that a lot of us who come here have is a question around happiness. And in Bhutan, there's a big emphasis on happiness, and so I'm interested to know if that comes from the Buddhist religion and just what role happiness plays in the religion and the daily life of people.
According to the monk here, he says that GNH comes as a teaching of Buddha. It totally depends on your karmic action, your previous life action. If you don't have a good karma in your previous life, you will not be reborn as a king in the country, to rule the country and then to keep the people happy and then safe and sound like that. Because of your previous action, the king is born as a crown prince. And since from his childhood, he will have his memories from the past like that. And due to that one, when he become a king, he knows how to keep his people happy. And then whatever the teachings that, like the GNH philosophies and like that, because of his previous karma, he is getting it now at the present time. And it's like doing a teaching, in a monastic way. So everything, comes from the Buddhism. The GNH in his life as a monk, he is very privileged to be born here in Bhutan, he says. He is very happy because he is born in this beautiful country and in the land of the Buddhist land, he says. If he is not born in this country, among all the other countries, he also thinks that he won't be happy as same as here in Bhutan. And he believes that in his previous life, because he might have done some kind of a small kind of religious work, so that's why he is born here in Bhutan and as a monk. Because in the monastic life, he don't have to worry anything. All the foods, everything is provided by the head of the monastic body. And he says he is very happy. And his happiness is, unmeasurable.
Okay, well, that's a very interesting response that you have. And the one question I would have for you, though, is that you said that you have all of your things are looked after, you have a good life, you have your needs met, and you're happy. But in this life, I want to know if there is still something that you are striving for or want to accomplish in this life.
The answer that the teacher here gave me is, so we have an aim, when we are getting the Western education, to become architect, engineers, doctors, like that. So that our parents, they don't want us to work in the field and struggle a lot. But according to the monastic education, their aim is to get an enlightenment once in a lifetime. But even though if they are unable to do their enlightenment once in a lifetime, he had an aim that after he finishes his studies from this area, then he wanted to do the meditation. As I told you, a solitary meditation for 3 years, 3 months, 3 days. And after that, he wanted to give some teachings to the people, those who are illiterate in terms of Buddhism. That is what he prefers, and that is his aim, his goal.
Okay, that's very interesting, and I know that just as an ordinary person, I probably will not achieve enlightenment the way you have described it, but I'm just wondering if there's any advice you can give to a person like me who is just a person traveling the world, living my life, trying to be a good person. What would be any kind of final advice that a Buddhist monk would have for an ordinary person like me?
Loponga samcharan hamti chaya an giola loponga luke jam lokai ginila jikcha zamin mora mang pucho nela jam. No, find a beautiful girl. You will be happy. Yeah. You will be happy. Nyom nela uno adigila las lopon nyom girong. He says he is not able to advise you because you had more new years than him. He says he's only 31 years old. Actually, the advice have to be from the elders, those who have more new years to the younger one. This is our custom in Bhutan, that elders are the one who gives an advice to the younger one. And the monk here says, the teacher here says, he also feels a little bit ashamed even to advise the people who are much more elder than him. But still then, as you are not a monk, he will give you a small advice, he says. The main thing that you need in your life is your heart. Your heart or your mindset have to be very pure and compassion. If you have, that is only his advice, if you have a good heart and good mindset, everything good will happen to you. That is what he believes in, to have a good mindset but not to harm others. Okay? That is his answer for you.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay, thank you very much, Tizing Gelka. It's been a pleasure, and I'm sure happy I had the chance to come and sit with you and ask questions of you. And I would just say one thing, that even though I'm in my older years, I'm never too old to receive advice, so I appreciate that. But anyway, thank you very much for being with us and speaking with us. And right now I feel very happy, so I appreciate it, and thank you very much.
Pleased and happy. As same as your word, he also expressed his gratitude for meeting you too, both of you. Saying that this is his first interview in his life.
Really?
Yeah. No one came here. Actually, he was not willing to do it also, but I forced him as a teacher. Okay. But, Baron, show me that strength. I will just say something about him.
Yeah, put the camera on him. Yeah.
No, put here.
I see. Oh, yeah,
need
okay.
it here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
So, as a teacher, the gentleman, the monk here, the monk teacher here, as he is a teacher, he will always be holding these three weapons with him. So these are the main things that we say in Buddhism to tame your mind. In Buddhism, we call three poisons, duksum, like ignorance, hatred, and anger. These are the three main poisons that we have in our human body. If you don't have that three poisons, you are like an enlightened being. You are enlightened. So to tame that one, in a monastic rules, we need these three one. These three represents three Buddha sattvas. This one represents the Buddha sattva of wisdom. First, to tame that mind, you need a wisdom. And then after that wisdom comes a compassion, Buddha sattva of compassion, where we believe Dalai Lama is believed to be the reincarnation of Buddha sattva of compassion. Then after that, if you are unable to tame your mind with the compassion also, then comes the Buddha sattva of power and energy. And these are not an ordinary whip that they have. Even the evils that you have, that resides in your body, have to be chased away with this one, because inside this one, they have a treasures, the mantras and treasures to take away the evils from your body. It is not to hurt you. It will not get hurt. You will not get hurt when you are whipped with this one. So at the present stage, after he finishes his 9 years of monastic studies, he is a teacher here in Drukpa Monastery, known as Mr. Sring Gelsen. Those who ever wanted to come and meet him here, he will always be here in this monastic body as a teacher, but later on he will get promoted, and after that he may leave for the meditation in the mountains, in the solitary mountains where no one will be able to meet him. So we, on behalf of David and Warren, Daniel and George, we wish him all the best of luck. Put it off. That's all.
Okay, that concludes the interview with the monk and this video. But I just have one piece of Buddhist advice I'd like to pass on before closing. And after the interview with the monk, I gave him a jar of Canadian maple syrup, which he graciously accepted. And then I found out later that had that been a jar of honey, he would not have accepted it, because it's his view that if you take honey, you're taking away from the bees. So if there's any Buddhists out there, no honey, think of the bees. And so anyway, with that, I'll close off. Thank you for watching, and the next video will have way less talking and more pictures and music and dancing and those kind of things. So anyway, thanks again for watching, and bye for now.